Alright, welcome back everyone dito sa latest episode ng Deep Dive with Richard Haydarian, the greatest show in the world. Just kidding. Thank you very much again for everyone for your greetings on my birthday yesterday para ma-pressure naman yung guest natin. Today we have a very special guest, Congresswoman Geraldine Roman. It's Geraldine. There's no other. Yeah.
Just call me Geraldine. My friends call me Jerry. Kasi baka mas misgender na naman ako.
Exactly.
Jerry is actually also a feminine name in Europe.
Exactly.
G-E-R-I. Remember yung Spice Girls?
Yes.
Si Jerry Halliwell. Oh.
Yes.
Jerry. Pwede rin Jerry. Okay.
Okay. Let's just stick with Congresswoman Roman.
Okay.
Wow, marami tayong pag-usapan today. Obviously, you had just a press conference the other day on something very important, itong issue ng digital responsibility, if I can put it in a most neutral way possible. Obviously, it also comes on the heels of yung TRICOM hearings.
Yeah.
I think pati ako tinatawagan hopefully as an expert, not as a troll. No. So we're having some serious discussion about issues of disinformation, fake news, quote unquote, and also issues related to national security. So obviously you have really taken it upon yourself, no, to push for a really important initiative here. Can you give us a little bit of a summary before we go deeply into that? So, in short, ano pong gusto niyo mangyari?
Let's contextualize. Actually, yung nababanggit nga na TRICOM, no? Right now, we're conducting an investigation in aid of legislation regarding the proliferation of fake news. And it is a problem that we have been experiencing in our country for so many years already.
Right.
Everybody's complaining, everybody is trying to find a solution, but nobody's taking action. So during the TRICOM hearings, which I have been attending, we have invited experts from the field. Content creators, PR firms, political strategist firms, also lahat, members of the academe, representatives from the DICT, CICC, and we've been hearing them. And they've exposed what the problem is, the extent of the problem. It affects all Filipinos. Hindi lang kami mga politiko. Bakala nila this is politically motivated. Hindi po. Businessmen, women, minors, decent individuals whose reputations are tarnished, and it has also economic repercussions. I remember, may sakit, di ba, si Dr. Willie Ong, and makikita mo siya because of AI, nagbebenta siya ng kung ano-anong produkto na alam mo naman, scam.
Right.
Ganun din si Dr. Vicky Bello. So, malaking pera rin to.
Right.
So, what do we do about it?
So you're talking about multifarious threats at kailangan natin a whole of nation approach. But before going there, and I'll be honest about this, and this is what I like about this more relaxed format podcast version than the usual television stuff we do, is that nung ni-raise ko na intervene ko kayo, because last week I had interview with General Torre, right? And it was a very interesting spirited conversation because kinasuhan niya si Digong after yung threat ni Digong or joke threat niya na 15 na senador natin. And then of course kinasuhan din niya one of the trolls because nilalabas ng trolls na parang mamamatay na siya, nasa ICU na siya. So na-traumatize yung pamilya na. Sabi niya, enough is enough. Okay lang, babastusin niyo ako. Kasi last year, di ba, nung hinuhuli niya si Kibuloy, people would make memes of him na minor daw siya kasi he's trying to So sabi niya, enough is enough. So this is a sensitive issue we have been coming across. So there are a couple of people. I was also with USEC, Jeff D, who was also in the TRICOM. Pinag-usapan din namin yan. So I'm talking to people from different agencies, mga relevant agencies ukol sa issue na yan. And then I said, oh, by the way, I'm also gonna interview, I told some of our friends who are in the industry, in the legal aspect, PR aspect, you, and they said, wait, why would she do that? Is she because she is disarmingly charismatic, if I can put it that way? Or is it because she has already been pioneering? And I said, actually, don't forget, last time I checked, she was a legit journalist in Spain in a European language that is not English. Could you remind people of your background in journalism before you became a pioneer and a legislator? Because I think nakakalimutan ng tao na legit journalist ka to begin with. Yeah.
Actually, I have a master's degree in journalism from the University of the Basque Country. And I practiced writing journalism in Spain for many years before I decided to come home to the Philippines and join the world of public service. At
parang sakripisyo yan. Before I came back to third world, na just kidding.
Hindi naman. You know, I belong to a political
course, yeah.
family in Bataan. Several generations na yan. And really, this was not part of my life plan. Umuwi lang ako noong 2012 temporarily to take care of my father,
Yeah.
who was a heavy smoker, and then he was diagnosed with emphysema. Kaso nga, hindi pala gumagaling. So I eventually passed away. I couldn't leave my mom alone. And my mom was Congresswoman at that time. So I was helping her at the district office. I would go around and then people were asking me, Ma'am, why don't you continue in the footsteps? Because my mom was on her last term. So sabi ko, why not? Why not? And it seems that the people like me. The good thing was that I heard so many problems. But having lived for so many years in Europe, parang I had an outsider's perspective.
Yeah. Of best practices.
Of best practices.
Yeah, exactly.
Sabi ko, if they can do it in Europe, we
Right.
can also do it here in the Philippines, no? So, ayun na nga, umuwi ako. And, well, anyway, nandito ako, nakikita ko yung problema ng fake news, katulad nga na nangyari kay General Torre. And, yun ang masakit Richard, because these trolls hide behind this veil of anonymity, no? They inaabuso nila. And they attack you where it hurts the most. And they want to keep on doing that. But my personal opinion, I think many people share this opinion, is that we have to put a stop to this. Hindi naman pwedeng ganon, di ba? I mean, if you take content creation seriously, dapat based on the truth. Diba? You're free to criticize dahil nasa demokrasya naman tayo. In fact, we encourage that. I respect a free exchange of opinions and also our constitutional right to freedom of expression. Pero sabi ko nga, hindi naman lahat ng rights only. Hindi absolute yan. We have to set the boundaries.
Guardrails.
Correct.
Yeah. To be fair, itong issue ng coping or dealing with disinformation has been there for quite some time. Later on, we can talk about best practices around the world. I used to be based as a scholar in Taiwan. I met President Tsai back in the day. We talked about malign foreign interference. Mahalaga yan sa akin as someone who focuses on West Philippine Sea, South China Sea issues, Australia, other countries. But before going there, I remember actually back in the day, see Senator Grace Poe, remember she had this big hearing and invited some of these influencers or talking heads who are being accused of being fake news peddlers, and it kind of...
Was this during the 19th Congress?
Yeah, this is 2017 if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that would be
Digong's time pa yan, yeah.
17th Congress.
17th Congress pa yan. So it's way back. But sa akin palaga, yun yung pinaka-first attempt na nakita ko for the legislators to come in and kind of do something about it. Kasi out of control na yung 2015-16 elections, right? Us as journalists, we were feeling the heat. We felt it even more. I'm sure you also in the eye of the storm in politics, even if allegedly or aligned to the administration or not, right? Something we can discuss separately later on. We already felt it, parang hindi ito bago, matagal na ito. But for some reason, hindi siya umusad. For some reason...
Meron ba silang, did they come up with a legislative measure? Meron bang batas na naipasa nila or sinulat nila after that investigation?
Yun yung concern na ultimately I think came down to the concern na hindi gustong lumabas ng mga ibang senators or mga ibang tao na they're censoring folks, right? So the issue of censorship is important, but I'll just be honest, I mean, you don't have to make patol to this, but for me, when you had the president back then who's now being labeled as one-man fake news factory, as our good friend, like, was it Senator Trillanes who said it, or Executive Secretary Bersami, like, when you had Digong as a president, like, the idea of a Digong administration going hand in hand with putting the guardless, I just felt it's a conflict of interest issue in the worst way possible.
Alam mo yung scenario nun sa social media during the past administration, parang wild west.
Oh, yeah.
Anything
goes, yeah.
Wala talagang pakundangan, walang respeto. Hint of suspicion lang talagang pinapatulan na. They build it up to destroy whom they perceive to be political enemies.
Yung narco-politician list, right? You can,
oh
that's
my God,
crazy.
kawawa si Jed Mabilog.
Right.
Alam mo, na-meet ko si Jed Mabilog. Nagpunta kami sa Iloilo noon. And
yeah, this is the congressman who had to go to exile and had the
former mayor of Iloilo.
Iloilo, yeah.
And,
sorry, Iloilo, yeah. Congressman, yeah. Mayor, yeah.
Ano siya, awarded siya and recognized no, for his best practices. I met him, he was a godly man. He was praying always, and napaka-decenteng tao. And supposedly, hindi natuwa ang former president dahil hindi maganda yung number of votes na nag-garner niya sa Iloilo. So parang all of a sudden, parang siya, drug lord na bigla si Jed Maguilo. Naawa ako sa totoo lang, or even Laila de Lima.
Of course, Senator de Lima.
I mean, that is so cruel. You know, alam ko ang mundo ng politika is what we say in Tagalog, masalimuot. It's really dirty and everything. But still, kaming mga politiko, we should know where the limit is. Pag below the belt na talaga, iba na When you destroy a family's honor already, pagkatao, you nearly kill that person.
Yeah.
Pinapatay mo buhay. Can you imagine yung pinagdaanan ni Laila de Lima? 7 years.
Yeah, I visited her when she was in detention. It was quite something.
Ang hirap-hirap nun. And then, walang firm conviction. And then, she was not even allowed to have a laptop or to communicate with the outside world. Parang pinatay siyang buhay. And yet, she survived, thank God.
Because of her strength. Actually, mga time na yun, Mandela level na yung discussion Diba? Like, what she had to bear. Kasi, yung binisita ko siya nung detention nung isang time. It was like 2018-19. And back then, parang the idea is like...
binisita mo siya?
Binisita ko siya sa detention.
Okay, pinayagan ka?
Pinayagan naman ako.
Okay.
Actually, at that time, parang for 1,000 years na tong Duterte na to. Ang taas ng popularity, mukhang the next one will be another Duterte. Alam mo yung ganon. So parang
kudos to you.
So she was ready na for the long haul. Kaya nga parang Mandela leveling discussion. What if you're gonna be 20 years there, 30 years there, something like that. So grabe yung it's not the 7 years she spent. It's the fact that she was even willing to cope with the potential reality of being there forever. Yun yung mas masakit pa.
Alam mo yung nangyayari at the same time nun, sa 17th Congress, there was this hearing at the Committee on Good Government at that time. And they were coming up with trumped up charges, no? Nag-iimbento na talaga nung kung ano nung akusasyon, no?
Right.
Truth be told, maraming sumisipsip sa previous administration sa loob ng committee na yun, and they slut-shamed Senator Laila. But you know what? Although we kept quiet, and I've already apologized to Senator Laila about this, for this, and the women in the 17th Congress, we said no to that kind of slut-shaming. They wanted to show this
yung video clip.
Yung sex video na obviously hindi naman siya, no?
Was that where Harry Roque was? You can talk about.
He was part of the 17th
We'll
Congress.
have a like practically every interview I have, whether it's with the magistrate, I always say, where in the world is Harry Roque? Kasi hanggang ngayon, hindi pa namin mapin down Casablanca, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, right? Syempre, there's a running joke ano yung mga pageant doon, but I won't go down there. But speaking of okay, let's talk about it. You know, one of the things we also noticed over the years is, at the very least, you have grabe yung mga insults, right? Now, as someone who was a pioneer for the LGBTQ plus community, obviously it was extra difficult for you, right? How did you navigate that during the past decade, basically, since walang guardrails diba? Anything goes
Well, parang na-normalize na rin kasi sa Pilipinas, no? When you have, let's say, when I first started in politics, a candidate who belongs to the LGBT community.
Yeah.
Akala ko, exempt na ako doon kasi my life is not a secret in my province. My opponents at that time would use my gender identity as an issue against me. They would insult me, typical bakla, o meron kang babaeng melawit, yung mga ganun.
Right.
You know, but really, what really hurt me was when they started to judge my relationship with God, because I am a Catholic. I am a practicing Catholic. And I've always
Team
tried
Pope
my
Francis
best. Team
Catholic.
Pope Francis,
Kasi there's a Catholic na anti-Pope right?
Ay, po. Mahiya kayo may sakit ang Pope.
Exactly,
So, yun na nga, they started judging me. Sabi nila, ayaw ng Diyos ng katulad niya, pupunta yan si impyerno. Like, who died and made you God's spokesperson, right? Napaka self-righteous nyo. They told me that I would go to hell. And I would answer, you go ahead. Nakakainis, no? So, And then when I won, medyo natahimik sila. But many already judged me before I even started working. They already said, oh, she would champion like ultra woke ideology, no? In Congress. I don't know what they mean by that. Nobody has really defined what woke is in politics.
You think it's a weaponized term? Term of
It
abuse?
is weaponized.
It's a term of abuse now?
I think we should come up with a term which actually means the opposite to counter their attacks. Diba?
Feeling ko nga, parang now it's like a stand-in catch-all term for any progressive
Any
person,
progressive
period.
idea.
Yeah, woke. Yeah,
Kahit
yeah.
even the most, the measure with the purest of intentions, basta progressive in their point of view, no? They will brand it as woke. And then they're trying to brand woke as something negative and intrinsically evil. So I think this is happening worldwide. But anyway, so when I joined Congress, marami naman akong bills about farmers, education, practical things such as these, what I called mga salasalabat na mga kawad ng kuryente. Gusto kong sinupin yan. Marami. For the veterans, cancer patients, women. And I just had one bill for the LGBT community, which is the SOGI-SC Equality Bill. And yet, on the basis of that singular bill, no, which has been languishing in Congress for the past 25 years na nga ginajudge na nila ako. Woke na daw ako.
How do you feel about yung response kay Senator Risa's latest push, diba? I mean, we had a former Supreme Court Chief Justice coming out with a very weird characterization. I mean, like, what did she just say? Like, yung mga comments nakita ko, ano to? Parang Sesame Street ba?
This has something to do with comprehensive sexuality education. Actually, it's part already of our education system. In fact, meron na talagang memorandum circular since the time of former President Duterte, no?
Right.
I have to give it also to President Duterte. During his time, there were many progressive measures that were promoted. I don't know, but I was happy with that.
I want to actually talk about that kasi you know John Oliver, right? I mean, the guy who does satire in the U.S. Is it John Oliver? Yeah. Anyway, there was once I had conversation with this team and all, and they said, "Is there something we don't know about Duterte?" I said, "Actually, I don't want to say he's like part Bernie Sanders, part Trump, but actually, if you go to Davao, from what I know and what I understand, including my friends na academe there and LGBTQ, they were saying actually both Sara and Digong very liberal on issues that, including even issues of
same-sex marriage, which is very controversial,
or even divorce. I had relatives who voted for Duterte passionately, and they're liberal people. But the one issue that got them was yung divorce, na openness niya to divorce, right? So yun yung bizarre, surreal situation.
Pero hindi napasa yung divorce during
napasa,
President Duterte's time. Dito, sa Marcos administration, napasa sa House of Representatives yung divorce. I don't know what the President personal stand is on divorce, no? Pero sabi ko nga, going back to dun sa comprehensive sexuality education and yung stand ni Risa Ontiveros, I think it's a realistic approach talaga to a problem that's already staring us in the eyes. And we cannot pretend.
You mean teenage pregnancy?
Yeah, teenage pregnancy and transmission
of STDs.
STDs.
Yeah.
Everybody should know that the highest rate of transmission of HIV is sa age group ng 15 to 25.
Right.
I mean, like,
those are the vulnerable window, yeah.
And that's also the same group na mataas, of course, yung teenage pregnancy. No? But what do we do? Do we pretend na we still have time to change their values and to require parents to raise their children with the proper moral values? The reality of things is that both parents, the husband and the wife, the father and the mother, nagtatrabaho pareho yan dahil mahal ang buhay eh.
Yeah.
So sino pa magtuturo sa mga anak? Yung mga anak, what they learn about sex, they learn through social media.
Yeah.
And, to link up with their crushes or their boyfriend and their girlfriend, ang dami-daming apps, di ba?
Yeah.
To make friends and to make casual encounters. So, Naalala ko tuloy yung brother ko, no? Attorney Tony Roman. He studied in the US and has 3 daughters. So I asked him, how did you talk about the topic of sex, no, to your daughters? Medyo awkward kasi raised in the Philippines sa kapatid ko, mga anak niya, practically mga American, no?
Right.
So when they reached the age of puberty, he said, mga anak, if I had the choice, I would like you to remain virgins and get married until the age of 30. But since I do not control you 24/7, please know you have these options, from contraceptives to condoms, to protect yourselves, and so that you can make the right decisions. Now, if you should you decide to engage in sex, no, please don't let me know. Yun lang ang sinabi niya. And his daughters are still single. They're already 31 years old, 30
So
years old.
it's a reverse psychology, but
The
that's
reverse
a good
psychology.
trick. I think I should talk to him more. Like, that's a good advice. No, the reason I'm asking you about this is because before we go to this hot topic and all this, ang gusto ko maintindihan dito is your I won't say virtue or skills, but yung your ability to navigate a very difficult fault line. I mean, you were saying on one hand, the Duterte administration had the narco politician list and harassment. At the same time, there was certain openness. At the same time, there were people like me who have been critical of you for some time. I mean, and this is transparency because I felt like, well, I mean, my goodness, like we have to draw the line. Speaking of guardrails, but I listened to your interview with my colleagues here, Robbie, and all of that, and podcast and long conversation. And ako naman, I'm open-minded. I was willing to listen. So basically, your argument is there are certain political realities you have to deal with.
Because the system allows it. I've been accused of being a political butterfly, palimbing, palipat-lipat. Alam mo, ganito yan eh. I've always viewed it this way. When people vote for that president, you have to respect that president's mandate. And you have to give him the opportunity to deliver on his promises and to show what he's capable of doing for the country. And I would say hindi naman perfect talaga yung Duterte administration. Sabi ko, marami siyang progressive ideas.
Or at least openness.
Yeah,
or at least
his openness, yeah. But at the same time, it seems that he did not respect the rule of law. Siguro carry over ng pagiging mayor niya. He thought that he could do anything. Just like a mayor would do, no? We have to respect the process. Due process, especially when it comes to, carrying and implementing his war against drugs. Hindi naman po pwedeng magdadami na lang yung extrajudicial killings. Kailangan, nagdadaan yan. Akusahan mo, kasuhan mo yan, dadaan yan sa korte, ikukulong. Kasi to my knowledge, wala naman death penalty sa Pilipinas. And you cannot promote a culture of death na patay dito, patay doon. Alam ko maraming tao, especially those who are already desperate na talagang have this direct experience, negative experience with drugs, they would want something instant. And I understand that here in our country, ang bagal minsan din ng justice system. Totoo yan eh. Kaya nga maraming politicians, naging popular sila dahil meron silang parang instant justice.
Dirty Harry, cowboy style.
Programs, no? But okay, what I did, I gave a chance to President Duterte. I had a difficult time kasi hindi aligned din yung some of my principles like the respect for the rule of law, due process. Also yung proliferation ng fake news during his time. I didn't like that. Oo. On the other hand, nagustuhan ko sabi ko nga, yung kanyang liberal mindset. Also, up to a certain extent, yung political determination. But still, political determination is not only.
Yeah.
Ang boundary mo is the law. It's always the law. And as a legislator, I thought, para pa kami gumawa ng batas kung hindi rin naman re-respetuhin. So, our system allows us to change political parties. Why? In Congress, if you are not supportive of the powers that be, kawawan distrito mo. Ang hirap nung ganon, di ba? you have to defend. You're like a mother. I felt like a mother who had to defend her children, my constituents.
Under impossible conditions, right?
Under very difficult conditions. And I was being judged for doing that. No? Sabi ko, these people, they talk, they have no idea of real politics.
But was an
easy.
abstention, for instance, on some controversial vote?
No. That was not even a possibility. The instructions were very clear.
There will be repercussions.
There will be repercussions for your district. The only option was yes. But, sige, balikan natin yung aking death penalty vote. Against talaga ako sa death penalty. Kasi nga, I'm a practicing Catholic.
Right.
Pero, ang choice ko nun is, kawawan distrito ko. First termer ako nun. Marami kami mga neophytes. We were crying. Nag-falling hair pa nga ako eh. Tapos I had this following among the youth who saw in me someone different. Somebody
Possible
who
champion.
Somebody who broke the glass ceiling, somebody who's very progressive, and so there was this pressure, no? Do I please my followers or do I protect my district? And the answer was very clear to me. Proteksyonan ko, ang prioridad ko talaga yung distrito ko kasi you're the ones who voted for me. So before deciding, I actually consulted. That day I remember I was in the Senate lobbying for the SOGI SC Equality Bill. I was distributing pink roses with rainbow ribbons among the senators. And I asked them, what are you going to do with the death penalty? Oh, we're going to vote against it. Okay. Good opportunity. Strategic vote. I please the powers that be in the lower house with the perfect knowledge that the bill would not prosper in the Senate. So, 2-in-1. Diba? Kaya nga lang, that does not sit well with the audience. Yun ang mahirap din sa aming mga politiko eh. Especially those who have gained some sort of popularity.
Prominence, yeah.
Yeah. And it seems nga na, kahit papano, pinakikinggan din ako maraming tao, many people observe me, which is kind of difficult too. Kasi I look at the other congressmen, they just go about their daily work and nobody notices them. But everything I say or do, parang I'm under scrutiny. But okay, bahagi talaga ng condition ko yun eh. Technically speaking, ako ang first trans woman in Congress and voice of the LGBT community. But people also forget that first and foremost, I am the representative of the 1st District of Bataan. Okay, the system allows it. Powers that be can punish your district. So what do we do about it? Ako ang pangarap ko talaga, magkaroon ng change ng system eh. Because for that to happen, you need constitutional reforms. And
that's tricky. That's a very tricky issue. Maybe we can have the discussion after elections kasi baka babalik ulit yung discussion na. And remember, and you know, there was a lot of back and forth between the Senate and Congress. Zubiri eventually lost even his position. Amid all of that, mahabang usapan yan. But you're also right. There's also this aspect that sa lower house, iba yung dynamics. Because, you know, I advised both Miriam Defensor back in the day and also Walden Belli in the lower house. So like, when I was just starting, no? So, I understood na iba talaga yung dynamics sa Senate, iba yung dynamics sa lower house. Sa Senate kasi collegial. You're basically 24 egos
and you
of
have
same stature.
Constituencies that you have to protect.
Right.
Unlike the Senate.
National.
Like your mini kingdom.
Yes.
It's like a mini kingdom, like small kingdoms. I've always viewed the Senate, I don't agree with the present setup of the Senate. Kung ako yan sana, parang sa Europe, regional, ang mga senators.
Which we used to have. Nung time ng Commonwealth.
Diba?
So for instance, Isabela de los Reyes, he was representing the Ilocos 3 regions put together back. Just like US.
At least you're directly accountable
each state,
to a group of people. And you can also have that direct engagement with the people. Ang problem ko kasi with the present setup is you just have 24 people. Too much power in the hands of few people. Just 24. And sometimes people get comfortable in their privileged situations. It's parang getting stuck on top of ivory towers and
sometimes
cosplaying
for potential presidents. I mean, some of them you can see that they're already positioning that.
Is it all about political ambition?
Wala akong sinasabi
What
Wala
about
kang sasabi sa microblading or
what
anything.
about the clamor for divorce? What about this group of women
Right.
who actually need a legal solution, formula,
Yeah.
na hindi naman legal annulment? Kasi alam mo naman, problema ng legal annulment, you have to prove that the grounds for that
The threshold
annulment,
is very high.
no, you have to prove that they existed at the start of the marriage. I mean,
like from the rot was what at the heart of the apple, parang ganun.
yes,
so you have
yes.
to litigate it from the very
for
beginning,
example, binubugbog ka. Kailangan patunayan mo at the time you married the guy, binubugbog ka na. But like, hello, would you marry that guy kung binubugbog ka na from the very start? So it's almost impossible to prove those grounds, no? Which is what eternalizes a legal annulment process. And many women, especially those who are underprivileged, are actually the ones who are victims and those who are trapped in toxic relationships where even their physical integrity nanganganib na. Halos patayin na sila eh. Tapos, inabuso ka na. Meron pa nga, let me tell you the story. Alam ko medyo nag-segue tayo dito sa
No. I
divorce.
mean, we're trying. People have to understand where you're coming from. That this is a conviction politics.
And this is
right?
related to
Yeah.
yung narinig kong stand ng Senate sa divorce. Ha? And my disagreement with the present setup. Itong divorce, no? So may mga babae ako nakilala. Actually, through Senator Pia Cayetano, no?
Right.
We campaigned for the divorce during the 17th Congress when she became Congresswoman. I met this woman who worked in Saudi Arabia as a domestic helper. So, alam mo naman ang conditions ng work doon. Medyo inaabuso. Pero tiniis niya yun so that she could send money to her husband, for their daughters also. So the husband would actually tell her, padala ka ng pera para magawa natin yung bahay, yung kusina, yung tuition fee ng anak. So she did that for several years until one day, merong kapitbahay na nagsabi sa kanya, umuwi ka na, hindi maganda yung nangyayari. So kinutuban si ate, umuwi siya. And this is what she found out. Lahat ng perang pinaghirapan niya, walang naipundar. No tuition, no renovations ng bahay, ginastos sa alak, barkada at droga. Tapos ang comment ko nun, buti nga ma'am, hindi nga ng babae. And then, with that rage within her,
I see, yeah.
she said, ma'am, yun na nga yung problema. Ang ginawa niyang babae, ang mga anak naming dalaga. How can I tell that woman, no, sorry, you married that guy, you made the wrong choice, you're stuck to him forever. And she doesn't have the money she can't afford a lengthy legal process.
Very expensive, yeah.
Very expensive. Kasi the grounds are difficult to prove. You know, divorce is a pro-women piece of legislation. You recognize that many relationships start okay, diba? They're in love, but have deteriorated. And despite all best efforts, wala na talagang magagawa. So, can we pride ourselves in the Philippines as being the only country in the world that still does not have divorce?
Wait, last time I checked, one of the few, if not only, Catholic country aside from Vatican.
Well, the Vatican, I mean, like everybody.
Spain is Catholic, Italy is Catholic,
But I
Argentina.
cannot consider the Vatican. Malta, which is staunchly Catholic, already has divorce. But the Vatican, like, who's married there?
Right.
They're all
That's
like
what I'm saying.
celibate.
Like, practically, we're not only but like only even among Catholic countries, we're still not there yet. Now,
Do you mean to say, lahat sila mali, tapos tayo lang ang tama? I mean,
well, some would make exactly that argument that mali si Pope, mali lahat ng Catholic countries, sila lang tama. I think they want to go back to 1970s or 60s. But I don't want to pick a theological fight here. What I want to discuss here is, dito, honestly, is there a part of you, ang basa ko kasi dito is, you're not regretting anything because you knew that you had to make hard choices. Very Hillary Clinton, right? Hard choices, I understand. But is there a part of you that parang, nevertheless, gusto kong bumawi ngayon to be even more a kind of a champion of rights or a kind of a bastion of responsibility? Kaya nga pumasok ka dito sa it because this is a minefield. You're asking for trouble.
I can't change the past.
Right.
What I can do is to recognize my mistakes, if there were mistakes, and also understand the circumstances. Kasi hindi naman ako naniniwala na everything in this world is black and white eh. Even what I learned it at the Ateneo, no, when it comes to morality and ethics, is that the circumstances define the gravity of what is perceived generally to be wrong. Lagi may circumstances yan. And what I can do is try to well, acknowledge it and also try to draw something positive from that experience. A learning experience. Like, when I apologized to Senator Laila de Lima for keeping quiet during the 17th Congress, nabash nga ako nun eh. Kala mo ako nagpakulong kay Laila de Lima.
Right.
Sabi ko nga, Diyos ko Lord, ang dami naming, we kept quiet. We were living under a climate of fear.
Yeah.
If you spoke against the administration or you perceived as a political enemy, lagot ka. You know what? Yung pagkakakulong kay Laila de Lima was basically a statement to the legislative. Tumahimik kayo. Walang legislative branch sa akin. Kaya ko magpakulong ng sitting senator. So, behave kayo at cooperate kayo sa akin. All presidents want cooperation from the legislative branch. But any president should also be open to dissent. Hindi naman laging tama ikaw eh. Maybe we can find a way. Pero hindi ka naman pwede mag-dictate when we live in a system where there is supposedly independence among the three branches of government. Separation of powers. So, when I apologized to her because of my silence, tama-tama we were discussing the Safe Spaces Act.
Right.
So we introduced this amendment to include public officials. I don't think public officials would be exempt from the Safe Spaces Act. If you make misogynistic remarks, if you disrespect the LGBT community, women in general, bastos ka, you cannot go unpunished when you should be setting the good example. You see, being in this position of power, lalo na kung Pangulo ka ng bansa, when you do or say something, people tend to normalize it. There was a time naging normal ang pagmumura. Pero naisip ko, is this what we are supposed to teach our children? Naging normal na to crack jokes against women. Remember the time...
rape jokes even.
Oh yeah.
Rape jokes.
Rape jokes. Remember,
jokes.
Yeah.
Jokes.
You remember that joke na, sana ako nauna kasi ang ganda niya.
Nauna si Mayor. Sana nauna si Mayor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kasi, missionary pa yan. Or mga jokes dun sa physical attributes ni then VP Lenny. You know,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Ang hirap nun. And everybody thought it was eskwela or cool to do those things.
You think a part of that was also a backlash against, kasi, well, hindi tayo Scandinavia or Europe level, pero sa Asia, we have been always among the top, if not number one, in terms of gender equity.
Oh, yes.
I'm not romanticizing the objective conditions, pero practically any
in theory.
Go to any other Asian country, put your thumb on it, I would say relatively Filipino women are, or even the LGBT, are better represented, more integrated. Because a part of me is saying this toxic masculinity was also a backlash. It was a way by the, like it was like a dark, unconscious somewhere
it's
there.
A generational thing too.
Boomer thing.
Yes. In terms of legislation, Filipina women are way ahead of our Asian counterparts.
Right.
I've attended several women's conferences in ASEAN, and pinapangarap pa lang nila, meron na tayo.
Yeah, exactly.
But real life, sa grassroots, alam mo ba na, for example, sa family ko, there are 11 articles that actually give priority to the husband over the wife.
Which has Spanish era roots and all of that. So meron din tayong problema ganun. It's kind of a hybrid schizophrenic also situation, right?
Yeah, so what do we do about it? So from our committee, I happen to chair the Committee on Women and Gender Equality. We've been trying to amend the family code. At least dapat equal footing yung husband at saka wife. Hindi naman pwedeng laging may last say yung husband in family decisions. For example, they want to sell a property because the family is in dire straits, payag na lahat ng anak, payag na yung wife, pero pag sinabi ng lalaki, ayoko, siya pa rin naman susunod.
Right.
O, diba? It can become very unreasonable. Akala mo naman lahat ng lalaki matino. So, anyway, going back to that machista culture.
Yeah.
It still exists. It's still, I think it's a generational thing. Thank God.
Hopefully, yeah. I hope, yeah.
Thank God nagkakaroon ng generational turnover. I'm proud to say na at least kahit sa Congress, you've seen there a lot of young legislators coming in, joining our ranks. May bagong mindset na yan.
Generational shift.
Yeah, many of them have studied abroad. Nakita naman na that sky doesn't fall on countries where there's gender equality and everybody's just happy, right? So they also dream of the same things for our country.
Congresswoman, now I want to go back to the issue of digital responsibility and guardrails. Yung discussion natin kanina, just for people to understand why I keep on harping on that is because marami nagsasabi, ngayon lang biglang matapang ng Congress, ngayon lang kaya galit sa disinformation, anong ginagawa? Itong congresswoman or congressman ganito. So I'm trying to give those skeptics, including the skeptic inside me, a chance to hear the other side. So I hope you see why I'm doing this, right? Kasi parang it's madali. Itong Quadcom na to, di ba dati ganito si ganyan? I mean, I don't want to name drop, right? Marami akong, or when, the president talked about his slate, di ba? So slate ko, ganito, ganyan. And then, of course, wait, last time I checked, this one was this. So that's why I hope you understand where I'm coming from. It's really to counter that skepticism, or at least give the other side of this conversation more voice, because masyado tayong in silos Everyone is trying to be like, eto mga to, di nila naintindihan ng politika kasi wala sila dito. Yung mga nasa labas naman, eto naman, lahat ng mga trapo na to, puro nakatrapuan.
I've actually received a lot of bashing because of this legislative measure, or this measure that I'm trying to promote, no? The reason why I come up with this suggestion is precisely to address the accusations na the TRICOM is just meant to harass voices that are against the
contrarian.
administration. Yes.
And it's elections period also.
Election period.
The timing.
Or it is just a venue for my colleagues to vent out their
frustrations,
their grievances against those who have attacked them on social media. I keep on reminding my colleagues, and we're fully aware, in fact, that this is a committee in aid of legislation. So, bearing in mind na patapos na rin ang 19th Congress, sabi ko we should come up with something. So, I started talking to the stakeholders. I've spoken to content creators, different associations of content creators. Meron pala. Also, yung mga digital marketing and advertisers associations. I've spoken to PR firms. I've spoken to prominent vloggers also, and political strategists. And
where is this coming from? Because that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of energy. So may election tayo. Is it this sense na the everything is spinning out of control? Parang papunta na tayo sa impyerno, kailangan natin ayusin yan. Is that what's driving you? Because that's a very energy-consuming one, right?
Hindi naman. I am by nature quite
hyper,
good in research. I am a journalist.
Yeah.
When I want to find a solution to something, I really do my research and I talk to people. I love listening to people. Kaya nga, dun sa mga bashers ko, hindi po ako galit sa inyo. I understand where you're coming from.
Kasama ako dyan sa bashers.
And Richard, I really don't care.
I'm kidding.
Basta alam ko malinis ang hangarin ko and I want to find a solution.
Right.
And I want to level up ang content creation sa ating bansa. I want it to be respectable. I want to do away with this impression na ang content creation is just meant to spread fake news, to serve the political interests of certain groups or individuals.
So you want to professionalize it, basically? Is this about code of ethics? This is about the rules of the game, some normative standards? Is this what we're looking at here? Okay.
Correct. Because this setup already exists among journalists.
And PR practitioners
and
even.
PR practitioners, or even in the world of advertising.
Right, exactly.
So I came up with a suggestion which I presented at the TRICOM, which is the creation of a digital council of the Philippines.
Is there a best practices or model that you're looking at? Meron bang ibang bansa na may something similar? I remember very well, for instance, when President Trump was bumped off some of the big platforms. Back then,
Yes.
Chancellor Merkel came out and said, this decision should not be left to either specifically a specific government or specific companies. There has to be kind of an inclusive body, representative body that makes these decisions, because it reflects on the character of a democracy's constitutional order, right?
Yes.
So is it in that kind of spirit, that Merkel spirit, that on questions of guardrails around responsibility of speech, it has to be a kind of a whole of nation approach, and an
It is a
inclusive
difficult
approach.
balancing act,
Right.
you know. When you mentioned first, well, this was what they were accusing me of, no? That I would infringe on the constitutional right to freedom of expression. Pinag-aralan ko rin po yan.
Right.
In fact, when it comes to legislating, something that has something that is related to the constitutional right to, in this case, freedom of expression, we always go and lean towards and choose the least restrictive means. This is the scrutiny test that is employed in the US
Right.
by the US Supreme Court and also here in our country. Kasi nga, we do recognize and we should realize that hindi naman komo yan ay constitutional right, unli yan or
Only yan, yeah.
absolute. Now, speaking of models, you were mentioning Angela Merkel or Europe. We don't have to go abroad. In our country, for example, yung mga commercials na tinatawag, in the world of advertising, whether print or broadcast, radio, television, lahat pala ng commercials nagdadaan sa tinatawag na Ads Standards Council.
Right.
It's a body created among practitioners, the stakeholders in the world of advertising. So first they came up with a code of ethics and standards, no? Which I presume is based on what is true and what is fair. Kasi there is such a thing as unfair advertising. Yung mga nangangako na, okay, kikinis ang kutis mo in 3 days if you use this
Right.
cream, no?
False advertising.
False
basically.
advertising. So, if they detect that a commercial
Right.
is false or unfair and it violates their code of ethics, hindi nila binibigyan ng approval yan. And hindi pwedeng yan i-print, hindi yan pwedeng i-broadcast.
And sometimes there are, but sa dulo there's a caveat or disclaimer na walang therapeutic, proof or claim. There's also, so there you have the gradations of.
So, I think many bodies are represented in the Ads Standards Council, including the FDA, the Food and Drug
Right.
Administration. So, it's easy to prove if the claims are false, no, are baseless, and they do not allow. My point is that, is that censorship? Is that a curtailment of the right to expression, right to free speech? I don't think so. So we are always guided by what is true and what is fair. So translate that into the world of content creation through what we would call the Digital Council of the Philippines, to be formed by the stakeholders themselves. I'm not about to legislate the creation, no?
Yeah.
The initiative should come from the stakeholders themselves. Takot ako kasi na makusahan nga na, this is another form of government control.
So it's like a counter weaponization. I was like, no, but
And I am against government
yeah,
control.
of course.
So in the world of content creation. But I firmly believe in the professionalization, if such a term exists, no? And if that's even possible. I believe that many content creators are serious content creators, and they do not want to be ranked among those who are just or those who are unscrupulous. So they would choose these associations. Ang ideal makeup niyan is it will be formed by advertisers, also associations of content creators, PR firms, the DICT, kasi kailangan somehow
Yes.
may role din ang government, and also
So it's a public-private partnership.
yes,
Right.
yes, but mainly private, yung mga content creators.
So you want also the academe to be involved in this?
Yes, also. major technology and social media companies, yung ating social media platforms, they should also be represented. Ayun nga, like Facebook, Instagram, X, ang hirap-hirap nilang habulin.
That's what I'm saying, because yun ang napansin ko sa TRICOM na parang issues of double jurisdiction came up. Congressman Luis tried a lot of
Yes.
interventions on that regard. I was hearing from our friends in the government, the ICT, that bringing in some of the platforms in is quite, it seems like a challenge based on what they observed during the TRICOM. So how do you make sure all relevant voices and platforms contribute to this and have a buy-in? How do you do that?
They will want to join the Digital Council of the Philippines. I'll explain to you how. Okay, meron ka ng association ng mga content creators, no, with their registry. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na lahat ng tinatawag ng content creators dapat magpa-register. In fact, if you look at FB, di ba, laging ang occupation is content creator. Hindi naman lahat. Dapat meron kang following at least, 5,001 and above. Kasi ang limit ng FB friends is only 5,000, right?
Yeah.
So 5,001 and above, siguro pwede ka na magpa-register. And if you are productive, you have consistent output,
Right.
maybe you can register already. So why is it important to have a registry of content creators? Kasi naman, if you're really serious, you would want to put a name behind, several pseudonyms, right? And if you're serious about it, you would want to join an association that would come up with its own code of ethics and code of conduct, like journalists do. Because you realize that, and you recognize that hindi man only to eh.
Yeah.
Oo. Ang mga seryosong content creators, alam nila, hindi only ang kanilang karapatan. And they know that they have to be responsible. And by responsible, I mean write something and create something that is true. You can be critical of the government, you can be critical of politicians. I don't know, karapatan mo yan. In fact, sabi ko nga, there always has to be an opposition in a healthy democracy.
Can I push back a little bit against that by just giving the other side of this argument? For instance, our very good friend, and we mentioned him, your former colleague, Harry Roque, kept on referring to the Supreme Court ruling in the US, this whole idea of marketplace of ideas. Now, in the end, truth will prevail, that let bad ideas and good ideas cleanse each other out and eventually leave it to the citizens and the consumers to decide which is what. You think that this didn't work or it's not empirically
In
sustainable?
an ideal world, that would work. Pero ngayon, kahit nga sa Facebook okay, you have a piece of information, malinformation, that is shared by hundreds of thousands of trolls. Just by the mere repetition of that piece of information, it is eventually perceived to be true.
So it's the Goebbels principle.
Parang
If you say a lie
yan
1,000 times, it becomes true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or kahit sa Facebook, diba? How do you take down a page? Paramihan tayo ng complaint.
Right.
Hindi naman based on...
Mass reporting, yeah.
Yeah, mass reporting. Hindi naman yan based on the actual content itself or the person behind that account or yung output ng person na yon. So, hindi po pwede yon. So, I think if you are a serious content creator, you would want to join an association also to protect yourself.
Right.
Kasi I'm sure that that association would also come up with, guidelines to protect themselves.
Right.
When you establish your, what was your term?
Guardrails.
Guardrails.
Yes.
You also protect yourself.
Yeah, because it's kind of a guild, right? Kung
It is a
nagkaroon ng
guild.
problema, one is
Correct.
attacked, the whole guild will stand behind you. Well, this second part, and this is, again, you're trying to be fair, right? Otherwise, it will look like dalawa lang tayo nagbabash ng isa. The other argument is, if you have a certain national profile, for some of us journalists based in Metro Manila, medyo matapang kami because, you have a profile, but, I've been in many places. In Mindanao, for instance. I don't want to say which places. I've been in Palawan. I won't say which places. I talked to content creators and some of the radio folks. And they were saying, nakakatakot po magsalita dito. Papatayin ka ni mayor, papatayin ka ni congressman, like ganun daw. So, kaya nga kailangan nila magkaroon ng anonymity para they have a chance to air out their grievances. What do we say to those folks who see a chance to be able to circumvent yung climate of fear, if not violence, that they're confronting?
Well, that registry could be kept confidential, actually, sa loob ng samahan na yan. And, we do have laws to address violence against journalists.
Right.
And possibly we could expand and amend those laws to include content creators.
So you'll extend the protection given to journalists under this, but you'll also extend protection.
Yes.
So it comes with responsibility, comes with the rights and protection.
Risks.
Yes.
And risk as well.
Risk, yeah.
Sadly enough, pag ikaw ay nagiging makatotohanan, sometimes,
Yeah.
the truth hurts. And there will always be those who hate the truth and who will try to silence the truth. So, ano gagawin natin? Delies na lang tayo, makikisama tayo sa kanila. No. There is strength in unity, and as an association, as a guild, you will gain strength. You can lobby, even us legislators, to come up with laws to protect this sector.
Yeah.
Diba? I think it's for the good, eh. Freedom of association. Why don't we exercise that freedom of association as well?
Collective bargaining in a way,
Collective
right?
bargaining, exactly.
Yeah.
Leverage.
So it's like a labor union almost. I know it sounds lefty,
Yes.
but it's like a labor union of content creators. I mean, I always say, like, as content creators, na the double taxation ka anyway. You're taxed there. Before it comes here, you have to pay tax against here. You're already like a legit professional. So might as well take it to the next
Baka ngayon ang
level.
problema, ayaw nila matax.
Right. So baka,
Well, hindi ko naman sinasama.
So maybe, that's my point. Because this is very, earth-shaking ito, implications-wise, because marami siyang tatamaan. Siguro it has to go with corollary reform. So for instance, I think Senator Raffy Tulfo, a good friend of ours, talked about dapat i-address yung double taxation. If you're being already taxed abroad, dapat wala ng tax dito. So maybe some of the other concerns like fear, protection, and all can go together.
Nalalaman pa ba ng BIR magkano ang kinikita ng content creators?
Madaling tignan. I was
madaling
told,
talaga.
yeah. Actually, you can look at their analytics and you can request for that. So actually, if they want to go after you, they can go after you.
Sa YouTube, di ba? Yung monetization.
Yes, you can check
that.
that.
They can estimate about that.
They can easily. So if, let's say, for instance, I have 2 million views, the expectation is you're earning between 100 to 300,000 pesos a month. Something like that.
But that's another topic.
But that's another topic. But the reason I'm emphasizing that, Congresswoman, is because this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. You're not supposed to give all the answers here, but I think we have to raise the right questions, right? So I hope in my own little way, in this conversation, nakikita natin na marami
welcome
aspekto.
Welcome. Sana nga dun sa committee mas ma-discuss itong measure na to, no?
Yeah.
And sana nga rin, pati rin yung those who are critical of the administration would participate here. I'd love to hear your ideas.
Yeah.
Wag na tayo mag-resort sa bashing. Okay, if you want to bash, to express your ideas. Some of them are so scared of this registry nga, without actually thinking of the greater context, the bigger context, which is the Digital Council of the Philippines and the benefits that it could bring to the sector, to the practitioners, to the stakeholders. So, how does this work? Okay, so if you have the council already, formed by the academies, civil society organizations, promoting press freedom and information integrity, fact-checking and media watchdog organizations, digital rights organizations, and also the advertisers. So people can actually go to this council to complain about fake news. And they would have the technical means to fact check and to determine if a piece of information is based on the truth or not. Tapos, ang next step is that if they find out that this is fake news, they can actually inform the major social media platforms so that this is where the part of legislation comes in. Those major social media platforms would flag the piece of information as false or incomplete, walang balance,
Right.
no, or biased, what have you. At least, I know it's hard to take
Or you
down.
can community note, di ba? I mean, sa Twitter,
Community
kasi
note, yan,
that's
oo.
community note it, right?
Community
may
note
konting
it.
sablay
Pero may
dito.
annotation.
Annotation, exactly. That's a good
Annotation.
term, yeah.
Ngayon, pag hindi sumunod yung major social media platform, yung advertisers, sasabihin, okay, hindi kami maglalagay ng ads sa'yo. I think they would listen.
They could put pressure.
They could put pressure. In that sense, from within the Digital Council of the Philippines, may ngipin na rin siya. Especially dun sa advertising part.
Right. Because after all, there are businesses who rely on advertising.
oo.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's not this kind of a dictatorial imposition and censorship and all of that. No, that's really really important. Now the last part I want to discuss is, again, I know this is a work in progress. Ako kasi ang pasok ko dito when I heard about your advocacy was precisely because of this issue ng malign foreign interference, you know.
Oo.
Yung issue na yung ibang troll kasi hindi lang double time, triple time.
Uy, alam mo
Hindi
ba,
lang
Richard?
nagfe-fake news sa politiko, nagfe-fake news pa sa mga dayuhan, sa mga I don't know, pogo, like whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, precisely because of my participation in the TRICOM, no? Or my being visible, no? Especially in the many press cons of the House, no?
Right.
Nababash ako. And even in my social media account, you would see na panay, I don't know, are those Vietnamese or Thai or Malaysian
They're also like
names?
South Asian ones.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I'm not
I was
there.
thinking, I was asking my social media manager, anong sabihin nito? Mga troll farms yan,
Yeah.
dun sa mga country na yan.
Yeah.
So, first
I've
time,
seen
sabi ko, tanggalin nyo yung ating, shut down yung comment section.
Yeah.
Kaso ma'am, they can place the angry emoticon or the...
Yeah, emoji. They can
The
emoji ratio. They did that to the president, right? Napansin ko, like, there'll be like 600,000 angry emoji or laugh emoji. You know that's not true. Kasi the moment you press it, all sorts of weird profiles come
But
out.
there's a practical purpose for
Yeah.
that. When they place that angry emoji,
Yeah.
naapektuhan yung
algorithm in terms of recommendations and all
Oo.
of that.
So,
yeah.
hindi na kumakalat yung announcement na yon o yung activity mo yan. In the case of the Office of the President, he's trying to report
Yeah.
dun sa activities niya, yung events niya, and his achievements. So, ina-angry emoticon nila yan para maafektuhan yung algorithm.
True.
So, yun na nga. How do you go after those nations who supposedly finance these troll farms?
Or host it. And I was talking to Yusek Jeff from DICT, and he was saying na dahil nga dito sa mga AI, may self-replicating. Iba talaga artificial intelligence na
Ay,
lang.
oo.
So meron kang essentially parang 3-layer. They're like yung mga propagandists na bayaran, we don't name this. And then there's like a tao na troll farm, and then there's like bots, like millions and millions.
Can you explain to
So it's a
everyone yung bots
multi-layer.
na yan? Hindi ko fully
Yeah.
understood yan.
So yan,
bots.
you can actually just program it, right? You can just, kaya minsan mapansin
Hindi
mo,
tao.
Hindi tao yan. Kaya minsan paulit-ulit lang yung comment,
Oo,
right?
oo,
So
oo.
it's really just bots. It's not real people. And then you sprinkle it. Depende sa budget mo kasi. so it's like a Michelin
So meron
3
silang
star.
script.
Yeah, parang may Michelin star. Yeah,
Uulit-ulitin mo
yeah.
na lang yan.
Yes.
Okay.
So, kung ikaw ay medyo high profile, medyo nilatag ng magandang budget, medyo mas granular, sabihin natin.
I've never resorted to that. You know
Yeah.
why? Kasi sinulolokohin ko sarili ko. I mean, like, hello. Sabi, ang ganda-ganda mo or ang galing-galing mo. Sinububulahin natin sarili natin. I'd rather listen to those who are critical of me. Of course,
Na totoong tao.
na totoong
Yeah, exactly,
tao.
yeah.
Siyempre, tinisilip natin yung kung talagang totoo tao yan, ilan ng friends niya, kung nakabase yan sa bataan, kung many other factors, no? So, I've always been open to criticism, and I really believe in a free exchange of ideas in a democracy. It's healthy. But, pag sinabi nating free exchange, hindi pa pwede yung falsehoods.
Yeah.
Hindi pa pwede yung paninirang puri, as we say, no? That's libel, basically. And hindi pa pwede naman yung, ako kasi, I don't know. Am I too idealistic? I want everything to be constructive. Which is why I'm trying to work on this suggestion.
That's
And
why I
really
use the term
welcome
guardrails. Kasi the whole point of guardrails is pwede ka mag-drive, kahit medyo mabilis ka, pero mayroon kang guardrail just to make sure hindi ka lang,
Matanong
mahulog
kita, Richard, what is your opinion? Meron ding mga colleagues ako nagsasuggest na to require the major social media platforms to ask for franchise from Congress.
Ako, I think I'm watching very carefully the case of Brazil, because Brazil recently had a big fight with Twitter over this issue, and eventually the Brazilian government prevailed.
Talaga?
Yeah, I think
So,
as we speak, there are case studies of that, of governments standing up to platforms saying this is crazy. Because in the case of Brazil, I think the government is Lula, right? So PT, Trabalhador Party. The sense was naging cesspool ng alt-right or opposition essentially platform na siya, and also spreading dangerous stuff that we're contributing to instability, environmental crisis.
So
the
what does
lulag,
Twitter has to ask for franchise or permit from
well,
the government?
or some basic understanding that there has to be respect of sovereignty. Kasi may Supreme Court ruling na from my understanding. Eh. So as we speak, there's jurisprudence being developed
In
and
Brazil.
precedents being developed all across the world.
Ako my personal take, I don't like government control. Even of the major social media platforms, ayoko niyan. Their very existence or presence in the country will have to depend on the government and the powers that be. Hindi rin ako pabor dyan. And even from a purely political point of view, it's like political suicide. What if that, let's say, Facebook decides to shut down its operations here in the Philippines? Naku, ang daming magagalit sa'yo niyan. Sinong boboto sa'yo bilang politiko?
Yeah.
Diba? It's counterproductive even from a purely political point of view. Meron din nagsasuggest na, I don't know, creation of a body within the government to do fact-checking. But what do you do with the results? You would need the law. Now, with these findings, we can require or oblige social media platforms to annotate or to yung what you said, the community
Guardrails?
no, that you would say that this piece of information
Community notes. Yeah,
community notes,
Yeah.
no? Pwede rin yung ganon,
Yeah,
no?
oo.
Pero ako, as much as possible, gusto ko self-regulation from within the sector. Kasi any kind of law that will allow the government to actually take control
Encroach, yeah.
is a double-edged sword.
Or
it's
a
like
rabbit
a trap.
hole, yeah.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's a trap. Kasi depending on who's in power, it can be manipulated. The sector could be manipulated. So it will be basically a curtailment of that basic and sacred constitutional right.
Well, Gerald, my point is there's also another complicating factor because sinasabi niyo ba, pagdating sa TikTok and Chinese app, there should be also a different approach. So the concern with TikTok, for instance, is the data storage. So I was in India 2 months ago. TikTok is banned in India on national security grounds.
Wala rin din FB daw sa China.
Well,
their own.
China blocks practically everyone else. So the
Okay.
other concern is reciprocity. Hindi pwede yung apps mo, okay sa amin, tas kami hindi pwede dyan. And then of course in the US, the latest case was TikTok was almost banned until Trump came in and gave them a 90-day reprieve on, some would say, questionable legal grounds. But the idea there is, hindi namin binaban yung app. Gusto lang namin yung data nila must stay sa US because what if this data could be weaponized in an event of contingencies or crisis or war? Because it's always possible the US and China could go to war. And I would say that also applies to the Philippines. But then again, ako, to be honest, on my part, I think we have to have a healthy discussion, not only in the Congress, but whole of nation, like when we have almost an active threat of potential warfare, right, with a certain country, and that country has a major active app here that is gathering our data every day.
Yeah. So
Shouldn't we
data
discuss?
privacy laws are also
Exactly, yeah.
in play, no? I think that was also the case in the US with TikTok. Sabi daw nila, through TikTok, actually, China was gathering information, sensitive information, even from politicians and people in positions of power, no?
And bawal ang TikTok on any phone if you're a government and often in many countries, including Europe, right? Because the idea is that probably you're not safe.
So na guilty ako, nagti-TikTok din ako, and I'm a politician.
Well, use a burner phone. I use a burner phone.
Alam mo naman sa Pilipinas, people would like to discover the other side, no, the less serious side of a politician. That's our way of humanizing ourselves, our image, and
Pwede ka naman magbudot sa Facebook, kasi ako feeling ko I'm shadow banned on TikTok. So minsan pag hindi umobrang budot ko sa TikTok, bubudot ako sa other place. But bentang-benta sa Gen Z. And ang kagandahan kasi ng TikTok, and I want to be fair to TikTok here, is you don't need to have many followers to go viral.
yeah.
Like, kasi hindi siya based on following eh. Iba yung algorithm niya. So you can get million views even if you have a few thousand followers or a few hundred followers.
For example,
So it's more egalitarian in that sense, yeah.
aside from that, less serious side, I also use TikTok to inform the people. How do we make laws? I made a
Right.
TikTok post.
Explainer, short,
explainer,
yeah.
in 30 seconds. How do you do this? What is the SOGSC equality bill? What is it? What it is not, no? Yung mga ganyang information or
So you'll have to do a lot of that. Nandito pa tayo sa
pero yung sinasabi mo about controlling the major social media platforms in other countries, sabi mo that's already
It is
in
a
place.
reality, and there are also, again, these are allegations, but you see this on the New York Times and the Wall Street Journals. Now, some country develop an understanding with some of the platforms, so it's not
So
a formal.
memorandum of agreement.
Yeah,
parang
and,
ganon.
or literally just an understanding. Literally, your communication secretaries in conversation with them. Na it's a much softer, non-legal approach. It's more like we're a big market because we're one of the biggest markets in the world. We have some leverage. Ang laki ng kita ng Facebook dito. Ang
Oo
laki ng
naman.
so you leverage that market size.
We try to invite Facebook to join our committee hearings. Wala eh. Wala silang physical presence here.
They used to, right? Yeah, they used to.
Supposedly, meron silang office dito, pero yung kanilang Asian office is
Singapore.
nasa Singapore,
Yeah.
no? So, nobody showed up. They sent a letter na parang excusing themselves. So, baka maano na sila. Mapa-show cause order na sila. No? So, ako, ang akin talaga, my personal take is that ayoko ng government control. Gusto ko self-regulation, but doon sa part ng how this council will require these major social media
There has to be a
platforms.
legal basis.
Dapat merong legal basis. Maring doon tayo papasok.
So it's just about that Goldilocks level whereby there's just enough legislation to create the grounds, the legal foundation, but primarily you want this to be grassroots driven,
Yes.
private sector driven, and multi-stakeholder driven, right?
I don't know kung masyadong idealistic tong suggestions na to. No? I don't know. But most of the people I spoke to, they really want to professionalize the sector. And these are really honest to goodness content creators. And my brother is a very good content creator. He specializes in legal advice.
Is this the same brother that gave that good advice to the daughters?
Yes. Si
Reverse
attorney
psychology.
Tony Roman. No? He's a TikTok lawyer. He's one of the top 15, something
Wow,
like that,
right.
TikTok content creators here in our country. No? And all of the awardees were like, may ambag.
Yeah.
May ambag, ano. How about political commentators? You are a political...
Yeah, but with TikTok, I
What is
noticed
your
problem
honest
with West
opinion?
Philippines related issues, to be honest. But no, on my part, I mean, what I want to say on this is, as a journalist, aside from being an academic, I mean, I think we're also coming to terms with the new physics of information dissemination. And let's be honest, I mean, when you were taking your master's in journalism, when I started writing for Philippine Daily Inquirer, working in GMA Network and now TV5, like, iba yung idea ko ng what is authority, sinong papakinggan ng tao, paano mag-explain ng... Ngayon, parang iba na yung competition mo eh. Kasi di ba, kung gagawa ka ng content sa TV, my goodness, it takes a day, ayusin mo, you have to get everything perfectly. And then kalaban mo yung spontaneous ones, gano'n.
Yeah.
And by the time nalalabas yung content mo, nakasampung content na yung kabila, the news cycle already moved on. So, ang bilis magbago itong
Ang
information
hirap
landscape. Mahirap talaga.
mag-compete with social media. You know, mainstream media cannot compete with social media content creators. Ang hirap eh.
Hirap, yeah.
Because there is a process that has to be respected and a code of ethics that has to be followed. You know, that's something good. But it slows down the process. Tapos yun na nga, kakompetensya mo, ang bilis nilang mag-generate ng content. Tapos wala naman sinusundan. They can accuse you of anything.
Yeah, they can come up with
practically.
anything, yeah.
Invent anything and then share it by the millions, I don't know. And then
So-
it becomes a truth, quote unquote. So how do you compete with that? Marami namang mainstream media rin. Siyempre, meron na silang social media accounts, no? And mabilis din naman ang output nila ng news. But I would like to think na yung model ng mainstream media when it comes to yung code of ethics, code of conduct can be transported to content creation. What is your honest opinion?
My honest opinion is that we'll keep the conversation at that kasi the more we discuss, man, there's more answer. No, this just tells you na hindi lang ito minefield. Actually, kailangan mo ng listening tour talaga. Kaya I was very glad when you said, mahilig ka makinig sa ibang
Ay,
tao.
nako.
Which is my weakness. You can see, madaldal akong tao, di ba? So like ADHD kasi I was like, I want to ask you questions like, No, but you're absolutely right. I think this is get the ball rolling, have more conversation. To be honest, I'm coming out of this conversation with even more questions, but good questions. I always tell my students, right? Kung mas na-confuse ka, but at the higher level, after my lecture, that means I did something good, right?
Yeah.
So I hope, I don't know, Congresswoman, on your part, I hope we're realizing that ang dami pang ibang angulo ito eh. At ang dami you need an interagency also approach
Yeah.
to this. You need also a multi-stakeholder
When I asked
approach.
the resource persons from the ICT, the
Yeah.
bloggers, and some other stakeholders who were present in the committee, they were all supportive. In fact, they said, we were thinking of something like this, but it never pushed through.
Yeah.
So at least this much I can promise everyone. Before the 19th Congress ends on June 30, I shall have filed it. I know parang it's an exercise in futility because I don't have the material time to approve this law. It won't undergo that usual legislative process, no? At least for the 20th Congress, kung sinong gustong mag-pick up on this and continue this, and maybe I don't even have to legislate this. Maybe by its own initiative, the sector will want to create a digital council of the Philippines. Maybe we can rally them.
Right.
Sige nga, iikot nga ako. Kakausapin ko sila.
Do it. Yeah.
Mag-convention tayo. Oh,
Exactly. Ako, Congresswoman, I mean, thank you for getting the ball rolling. Thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to see there are people like you inside the government doing this, looking at it from different angles, someone who has a journalism background. But let me just tell you this, and I'm not saying this because, we had a great conversation. I think by now it should be clear that as someone who has been a pioneer in your own right, for your community, as someone who has navigated very difficult, itong talagang grabing mga political transition we have seen throughout the past decade or so. Perhaps you are the best person to do this. I mean, usually, di ba, the joke is, if you look around and see no one is doing it right, you should do it yourself,
Oo
right?
naman.
Parang ganon na rin yata nangyari. Wait, parang walang may gumaga. I'll just do it myself.
Ang hirap kasi panay reklamo. But what are you doing about it?
Yep.
So, this has always been my personality, no? And disclaimer then, Richard, okay, you said I'm championing LGBT rights. But the truth of the matter is that I have only one law or one bill regarding the LGBT
But you have been
community.
pioneered by the virtue of parang your reason of being, raison d'être.
Oh
Yes,
my
like,
God,
yeah.
I'd hate to think of that circumstance as my raison d'être.
Yeah.
But I'm more than just an LGBT rights advocate. In fact, my first love was agrarian reform and agrarian reform beneficiaries. When I was working with my mom, in fact, I have a bill, which is a new improved agrarian reform bill. I also champion veterans' rights and also women's rights. No, although people keep saying, "No, hindi ka naman babae, how can you champion women's rights? Why do you have to be a woman to be an ally?"
Right.
Well, I consider myself a woman. I mean, what you see is what you get, and I really know what my truth is, and I really don't care what you think. But I will keep on fighting. No? I feel passionate about education, also about health. That's why I authored yung National Integrated Cancer Control Act. No, it's already a law.
Yeah.
And universal health care. Kasi when I was living in Spain, I saw that everybody, hindi sila stress pag nagkakasakit eh.
That's
Sagot ng
Europe,
gobyerno, there's this very good social security system, efficient taxation system, socialized taxation. The more you earn, the more you pay in taxes, and the money goes straight to hospital and health infrastructure,
Education,
health professionals, and then when people get sick, there's this universal health care. Nobody has to pay for health care. Dito sa Pilipinas kasi pag nagkasakit pa, it's like a death sentence. Can anything be more inhumane than that? To be living in a country where diagnosis of some sort of disease is already death sentence because you happen to be poor. Can't be.
On that clarion call, thank you very much, Congresswoman.
Clarion.
Yeah, I would say thank you very much for this conversation. I think people are expecting kind of a 20 minutes just going to that, but this is how I do it. Really the full context, the full view. Thank you very much, everyone. Tiniis niyo yung daldal namin na matagal. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for
Thank you,
giving,
Richard.
sharing us your time. Siguro next time, gawin natin yan at midnight hanggang umaga na tayo magsalita. Paras pala tayong madata.
Ay, nako.
Thank you so much for that. But I'm sure we're gonna get back. So hopefully in the next Congress, we're gonna see more momentum and action behind that while also waiting on the Sara impeachment issue, which should be a different discussion. Yeah. And ako mga ibang gustong tanongin para sabi ko kung saan tayo mapunta. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Richard.
Congresswoman.
Had a great time.
Salamat, guys.